Greetings, preppers. As World War III looms, the question on our mind is, will they reinstate the draft? We need to know, and there's some articles you need to see right now that'll help you understand if they're going to or not. And before we jump into if America is going to have the draft, we have to have some Bob Evans mac and cheese. No, obviously not. But Denmark is to begin conscription, but not men, conscripting women, and will increase the national service length in a bid to avoid war. And to understand that, there's many countries, including Denmark, that make it so military service is mandatory. And they're expanding it to now have women in the conscription process as well. Is that the way America's heading? Are we going to have women drafted in America? And not to mention, Germany plans now to reinstate their military conscription as well. And to understand that situation, because we're talking about a world dynamic here, Germany is in big trouble. Not only is their industrial complex collapsing, but they've admitted that they've given away pretty much all of their military armament and weapons and ammo and such to Ukraine, and they're in big trouble. They cannot get people to join their military. They're hurting. So they're going into conscription as well. So another comparison, how are we doing in the military in the United States? Do we have everybody filling the billet as far as what we need? Not even close. So let's go to our friends, the Selective Service System. And right now it says there is no draft at present. However, in the event of a national emergency which requires a draft, the following sections provide information of those sequence of events, etc. And you can go to their website and check it out. And the main thing I just want to point out for a second here is draft authorization, Congress and the President. Congress and the President. Congress. I'm going to really emphasize the Congress part because Congress has to decide if the draft is going to kick back in again. And there's been all kinds of speculation, by the way, all across the net. Some people are saying yes. Some people are saying no. A lot of people are really confused. Is there going to be a draft starting again? Let me show you this. This came out just a few months ago from the U.S. Army War College. A call to action, lessons from Ukraine for our future forces in the United States. And very quickly, this whole article was put out because the American military leadership recognizes the titanic shift in geopolitics happening right now, where ever since we saw the invasion of Ukraine, it's the greatest threat to peace and security of Europe and perhaps the world. So the U.S. Army War College is saying because what happened in Ukraine and Russia, and now things are spreading, that's why we're talking about the same things in Denmark and Germany, the United States has to get ready. So what are they doing to prepare for this? As we continue, casualties, replacements, and reconstitutions, we're talking about personnel. The war in Russia and Ukraine is exposing significant vulnerabilities in the Army's strategic personnel depth and the ability to withstand and replace casualties. This is amazing they planned this, obviously. The Army Theater medical planners may anticipate a sustained rate of roughly 3,600 casualties per day, ranging from those killed in action to wounded in action or suffering disease or other non-battle injuries. They have a 25% predicted replacement rate. The personnel system will require 800 new personnel every single day. And for context, the U.S. sustained about 50,000 casualties in 2 decades of fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay, hold on, there's more. Because in large-scale combat operations, the U.S. could experience that same number, 50,000 casualties, in simply just 2 weeks. Wow, that's a lot of pawns. I mean, soldiers going into the situation, bringing them up over and over and over again, only to basically either be killed off or injured. And now the United States military is worried, where are we going to get all these people from? It's obviously conscription, but look at this. Let's talk about the individual ready reserve. We simply just call it the IRR. It's the amount of soldiers that we have ready to go. In 1973, there were 700,000. In 1994, it dropped to 450,000. Today, only 76,000. In all intents and purposes, only a tenth of what it was in 73. These numbers cannot fill the existing gaps in active force, let alone any casualty replacement or expansion during a large-scale combat operation, aka World War III. The implication that the 70s concept of an all-volunteer force has outlived its shelf life and no longer aligns with current operating environments. A large-scale combat operation troop requirement, in other words, World War III, may well require a reconceptualization of the 70s and 80s volunteer force and will have to go toward at least a partial conscription. So the U.S. War College is planning this. They're looking at conscription. They're looking at basically having a draft again. And it's going to be our kids, our grandkids going into this to fight this full-scale war they're preparing for, just like Denmark and just like Germany. But there's more to it than this. Because we're not talking about just men. In this case, from the Associated Press, the High Court will not review men-only draft registration law. In other words, all this stuff going on as far as like equal rights for everybody between men and women, all of this stuff. Not getting into that debate at all. It simply is this. You know what? Why is it only men should be conscripted? Why should it be only men are drafted? If women want equal rights and all this, of course, it's all the people pushing for equal rights for women in the first place. Well, obviously, we're going to have to conscript women as well. Is that what's coming here in America? It is in Denmark. And look at this. This first paragraph tells it all. The Supreme Court said Monday that, at least for now, it'll be up to Congress, not the court, to decide whether to change the requirement that only men must register for the draft. It's one of the few areas of federal law where men and women are still treated differently. Long story short, Congress is weighing in whether to change the Selective Service, which requires men, but not women, to register for the draft when they turn 18. Now, granted, this article was a couple years ago, but it is something we have to look at because it's not up to basically the legal system, the judicial system, the laws to say that's the case. It's up to Congress. Remember I talked at the very beginning that if we're going to be looking at a selective service basically going into conscription in the first place, who's it up to? The president and Congress. So Congress could, in one fell swoop, simply make it that, not only are we starting the draft, but, by the way, we're going to start the draft with women as well. And again, this goes back a few years, too, from the Associated Press. A judge rule against male-only draft. In other words, it can't be just men, but no changes are imminent. But it could be imminent now because what's going on. U.S. District Judge Gray Miller declared male-only draft is unconstitutional, but stopped of ordering the government to make any immediate changes. Why would they bring it up now? The United States is not engaged in a full-scale war, but we can tell from the Army College documentation that this is what they're getting ready for. They're saying that there's no way the U.S. military can do this. And if we're heading into a full-scale war, I just like to call it World War III, everything taking place. It's not simply just little battles here and there, but we're seeing all kinds of sides coming against each other. There's going to be a draft. They're guaranteed to have a draft, and it's not going to be just for men, but for women as well. When we see it happening in other countries who are our allies, Denmark's always had a draft, but Germany too, it's something we have to prepare for. We have to prepare that there very well could be a draft starting, taking our kids, taking our grandkids, our sons and our daughters into World War III. And there is no, like back it was back in the day, running to Canada. I mean, I proudly served. I really did. But I often wonder how many of these things happening are really trying to fight for freedom and how much of it is really simply just all part of their orchestration. I want you to tell me what you think about that. Put in the comments below. Are we fighting for freedom anymore? Or are we fighting for some kind of tyrannical government who has some kind of agenda? I'm really wondering what the case may be. Put it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.